Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Earthly Headlines. Today we're going to talk about painted floors in modern day Jordan at the Neolithic site of Kharaysin. So these Spanish archaeologists they go to Zarqa, which is in northern Jordan. So they're saying they did some dating, and then they're saying that it's one of the first locations in the world where communities started building households, like neighborhoods basically, and grouping in agricultural societies. I'll show you guys pictures in a second, and there have been finds like this before, none dating to as old as this one, but painted lime plaster flooring in Jordan is not a new discovery, but this one again is older, and it's pretty well preserved just because of where it is. It's so dry. They could even tell what color the floor was. This one in particular, this find, the soil marks of it marks the first time that such an early painted lime plaster floor is documented anywhere in the world. 10,800 years old, I think, which is 800 years earlier than previously thought. And again, the technical advances in whatever technology, agriculture, plant cultivation, animal domestication, and in this case pyrotechnology, because you need fire in order to produce this plaster. It just keeps getting pushed back and back and back, and this is another one of those episodes where, and in this case, the plaster here, again, I said that it's been known for a while now. This one again, put 800 years. That's not insignificant. That's a long time when you're talking about human civilization. So people had neighborhoods with plaster flooring back then. And again, when's the Younger Dryas? We always have to compare this to the Younger Dryas. Younger Dryas is 12,000, so 12,000 BP, around there, 12,800 BP. So this is 10,800. So 2,000 years after the Younger Dryas, people are living in neighborhoods. These aren't that primitive either. And then they found a second painted floor as well, dated to 9,800 years BP. And it's a little bit different, but it's the same idea. There's plaster flooring, but different motifs and different paintings on it, and it's 1,000 years younger. So maybe these same group of people have been doing this, let's call it a tradition, this tradition of plaster flooring. They've been doing this for 1,000 years continuously, if we go by the dates here. And unless new evidence comes up, new data comes in, then we're going to have to assume that, if you're trying to be safe. Ibanez explained that the lime plaster was produced by burning limestones in excavated pits, while the floor consisted of a rough layer at the base, followed by a layer with finer material, and finished with a wash of very fine lime plaster with powdered red pigment on top. So they dug these pits, and then they had a raging fire going, and then they had a floor with all these different layers, and then they just heated it up, and that's how they did it. This shows a high degree of technical sophistication for the time, and it's not like they started doing that there. I mean, we just happened to find the ones that they did that date to that time. So I don't think the one that they found was the absolute first one. It's not like we're talking about a prototype here. It seemed like they had a system well in place for them to regularly produce these. We're talking about potentially, this technology could potentially go as far back as the Pleistocene, because the Pleistocene is not that long from 10,800 BP. That's like another 3,000 years after that, or before that, you're in the Pleistocene. The very end of the Pleistocene, but still. Regarding the paint found on the floors, archaeologists that noted that the first was painted red, so the first one they found, indicating that this innovation was probably charged with symbolic meaning. Could it have been like some sort of cathedral type ritual place? Could it have been just someone's house who happened to be religious? Like maybe having a red painted plaster floor, maybe that was kind of like having a shrine in your house. Maybe their living room was red, and that's how they showed that they had some sort of faith. I don't know. That's probably not it, but you guys get what I'm talking about. Basically what I'm trying to say is it could mean anything. They described this as a domestic space during the transition to farming. The discovery of these abstract paintings brings more value to several previous discoveries in Ain Ghazal, which is about 35 kilometers to the south of this site, where at similar chronology, some plastered floors showed abstract decoration. So this is what I was talking about before. These were the ones previously discovered but younger than these. And so now, obviously, it gives these discoveries more value. These unveiled floors also provided evidence of the high technical capacities of human groups toward the development of new hygienic measures, which allowed people to live together collectively in extended communities. So yeah, that the fact that they had this, like what I was talking about earlier, this system in place, they must have been successful, A, and then B, this is more than likely indicative of them living in large communities like this, and these happen to survive. And this isn't a fine find yet, because they found other plastered floors as well. So the fact that we found this many so many years later probably means that they were widespread for the most part. The archaeological team, the Spanish archaeological team, they're working on a couple of other things as well, aside from this lime flooring, the plaster. They found a house and a site where a woman was buried with a pestle. Ibanez says this finding suggests that in the moment the woman was buried, the mortar was broken and placed inside as a ritual of duel, based on the object that she might have used in her daily life, which provides us more hints on the roles that people in the community started to take. Okay, so they find this lady, she obviously something happened to her. Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of questions here, and I wonder what they'll find with that. Do some carbon dating on that woman's remains. That would be interesting. And then another thing they're investigating is a possible water canal bringing water into the homes in the settlement. So if they had, this is why I don't think they were just in the transition, unless these were just fringe people, which I don't think they were, separate from the main population that had already mastered irrigation, so to speak. Because if they had a complicated water canal bringing water into all the homes in the settlement, what if the settlement's huge? What if it's over, let's say it's over 50,000 people or something like that? That's huge, right? And then even if it's on a smaller scale, maybe if it's a village of 500 people, or maybe, I don't know, 25 families or something like that, 50 families, that's still really advanced, and B, that the fact that means that they had some sort of experience in city planning, village planning, where they put the houses on one side, and then this is where the canal is going to go to each house, and here's the way each house is going to get water. That doesn't communicate to me that this was the very first pioneering group of people who even conceived and put thought down to their hands, so to speak, and they actually were figuring things out as the pioneers. Basically, these weren't the first people to do this, I don't think. And the further steps in the process of sedentarization, yeah, so basically from when they say sedentarization, he's talking about people who don't need to walk around for a living anymore. Walk around to the extent that hunter-gatherers were, where they had to follow the game animals and the herds and all that stuff in order to survive, whereas these guys can just stay in one spot and just farm everything. If I had to guess, the water canal bringing to the homes in that settlement, the people who were privy to this idea, this might well have been a cutting edge idea at the time, and these people adopted that technology. So kind of like solar panels, right? Like 20 years ago, someone who had solar panels, they were not the majority. Now it's pretty, and where I live, obviously, I'm not talking about the whole globe, but where I live, solar panels are more of a thing now. But if you were to compare in this day and age, go to another part of the world, solar panels would not be anywhere, period. No one would have them within a 1,000-mile radius. So maybe these people were like the solar panel people today. Maybe they were just part of the crowd that decided to break off from the rest of the people and just create these communities. More than likely, though, they were probably ruled by some sort of government that kind of facilitated this technology to work. And I think this definitely, once it got going, this definitely gave these people the advantage in terms of improved quality of life. They could focus on other things. They had some sort of cultural system in place where they could basically a state system almost, right? But not that high. Maybe we'll call it maybe a fiefdom, something like that, where they lived in these communities ruled by a government, and they had this whole agricultural thing going. Maybe that's what Göbekli Tepe was. Maybe they were part of this movement of people who wanted to harness the power of the earth in terms of crop yield, planting, cultivating crops, and animal husbandry and all that stuff. Get all their basic needs met so they can focus on technology and other abstract things of the mind and their culture and technological innovation and politics and all this stuff. And if I had to bet, that's probably what happened, because along with that came writing, along with agriculture, the agricultural revolution, and all these civilizing forces coming together. You get writing, and then ergo you get written history, basically. So maybe from that point onward, this just became the dominant, I guess, way of life. It started, I mean, not at that time, but it started snowballing to that until thousands of years later you have, you know, the European Union. I don't know, what do you guys think about these plastered floors? Do you think this is indicative of a larger piece of history that we're missing? That I think some of these archaeologists are starting to voice that sort of perspective now. Or do you think it's just some insignificant find that is probably just an outlier in an otherwise more traditional view of history, that most people were hunter-gatherers and just a couple of people decided to have houses and that was that? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I like reading your comments as always, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.